Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear and see Annica and I, and you can see my screen. Just going to give everyone a few minutes to join us. Thanks for coming on a Friday lunchtime. I feel like we should have done music actually, Annica. It feels weird.
It does feel weird, doesn't it? I can say hello to some people that I recognize. Sean's here. Hi, Sean. And Jamie, I recognize. Hi, Jamie. Do you recognize? Oh, Kat is here as well. She knows both of us.
Oh, yeah, hi, Kat. This is a result of your work. I hope you're proud. Hi, Jenna. Hi, Kat. Hello, everyone. This is exciting. Okay, well, I'm going to start with a little bit of a Zoom tour, just in case no one has used Zoom before and doesn't know what the hell is going on. So you should have a couple of controls at the bottom of your screen, one of which is a little Q&A box. So if you think of any questions as we go through today, you can just pop them in there if you don't mind. And if you see a question in there that you really like, or someone stole your question, you can upvote it, so we can make sure that one gets answered first. And then you should also have a chat box. So just to test, Paul, if you just pop in the chat box your name and where you're joining us from today, that would be really lovely, so we can say hello. Okay. Okay, well, I'll make a start. Hopefully everyone is here. They'll come to join us today. So I'm Glenda. Everyone's put it in the Q&A box, that's why. Chat is disabled. Awesome. I don't know why that's not working, sorry. We'll have to use the Q&A box, otherwise my anxiety will take over. Nice to see you all. Thank you for being Q&A. I'm Glenda. I run Bloom Marketing. I'm a freelance marketing consultant. I've been freelancing for around 6 or 7 months now, so I'm a bit of a newbie to it all. The reason you're all here today is as a result of my own experience, I guess. So when I was thinking about going freelance, I was obviously doing some research. I started following some other freelancers and some people who started their own businesses. And I was getting a really mixed kind of bag of stuff that was going on. So I was following loads of freelancers who were moaning about their clients not paying their invoices on time, and it just felt like a really negative environment. I was following freelancers who were working like all the hours under the sun, which also didn't feel like something that I wanted to do. And then I was following some like business owners who I think had gone the other way and were like, this is how you can make £4 million overnight, which just kind of felt toxic and not really like where I wanted to be. And it wasn't until I actually took the plunge and started freelancing and spoke to some amazing people, like all of the guests that you'll meet if you're doing the whole series of 6 with me, like Annica, and like Natalie, who's an amazing accountant, that everyone just made it feel more possible for me. And they told me about their own experiences as starting out on their own or starting their businesses. And I was like, yeah, why aren't more people talking about this? So that's what I'm doing. I'm hopefully giving these amazing women a platform to share their stories with you. Not to say that it's all been plain sailing, I guess, but yeah, just a little more positivity down-to-earth experiences that I wanted as many people to hear as possible. So my guest today is Annica Wainwright, who I won't formally introduce because I think Annica can do a better job of that herself. But Annica is a co-founder of Two Forks. So at this point, Annica, if you'd like to say hello and intro yourself, that would be amazing.
Hi everyone. Yes, so I run a company called Two Forks, and we work with food, drink, and hospitality brands, and we help them essentially take their customers on a really deliberate journey from first-time customer to return customers, and eventually the kind of fans and ambassadors that will spread the word about your brand to everyone else. And we do that mostly through tone of voice and brand messaging development, so that people can find the messages that really connect with an audience, and then we apply it through journeys and feed those journeys with messages that make people feel like they're closer to the brand because we're talking about things that they want to hear. So we do tone of voice and brand messaging. We do customer journeys like email automations. We do menus for restaurants. Yeah, that's essentially what we do.
Amazing. And what kind of clients have you had? You've had some amazing ones, enviable ones that I love in hospitality. Who are they?
So yes, Anna, my co-founder, and I, we made a New Year's resolution a few years ago to only work with brands that we really love. And we talked about that publicly, and that was actually quite a shrewd marketing move because people were like, oh, we want to be the kind of people that people want to work with. So we've been lucky to work with the likes of Oaxaca, Dishoom, Hawksmoor, Rosa's Thai, Caravan, Pizza Pilgrims, all of my favorite brands in hospitality, essentially.
I feel like this conversation is going to make everyone hungry, so it's a good job it's lunchtime. They can all go eat afterwards. Cool. So if you can take us right back to the beginning, Annica, and tell us where you were before Two Forks, how it all started with you and Annica, and yeah, tell us the story.
So for me, it all started way back when I grew up on an island on the west coast of Sweden. My grandfather was a fisherman and also a great forager, and he used to take us kids out on fishing adventures, and he always knew where the mushrooms were in the late summer and where all the right berry spots were. So we would go out hunting and gathering and bringing food back to my granny's house, and we'd all cook together. And my entire wider family, and I kind of credit this to my grandpa, who's sadly not with us anymore, but we just love eating, singing together, sharing good food and good times. And so I just thought from a very early age, I knew that that's what I wanted to do for a job, just sort of spend time with other people who like to share good food and drink with people. So I announced to my parents I wanted to be a chef. And they wouldn't let me. They were like, oh no, you're far too clever. You need to go to university. So I was like, okay, if I can't cook the food, I need to write about the food. So I applied to do a split major in journalism and psychology. And while I was doing that at City University in London, the journalism side of the course was very practice-based. So you had to do a certain amount of work experience hours to sort of get to the next semester. And everybody else was fighting for placements at The Guardian and The Times. Even The Big Issue was a big thing at the time. People want to work there. And I just thought, what's the biggest restaurant guide in London? I want to work there. And at the time, that was Square Meal. And I looked them up. Turns out their office was 5 minutes from my flat, which really helped. And I just wandered around, knocked on the door and said, can I talk to someone about work experience? I ended up having a 3-hour chat about food and restaurants with Mark, one of the publishers there. And at the end of the chat, it just kind of kept going on. And then he had to leave. And I was like, oh, so do I have a placement? And he was like, oh yeah, start tomorrow. And I ended up spending 16 years at Time Out, not at Time Out, at Square Meal, starting as a menu collector, which really feeds my obsession with menus. I absolutely love it. I used to spend, this was before the internet. So, well, the internet existed, but publishing hadn't really caught on. So every single year we would split London into areas, and we would go out with our backpacks on and collect physical menus from all of the restaurants in that area. And I still think back on those days, wishing I still had all of the menus, because at one stage in the office, we had boxes and boxes of menus from every single restaurant in London. So that was really cool. And then after I'd sort of done my time menu collecting and ringing restaurants, asking for their opening hours and stuff, I was sort of offered my first reviewer mission, and it all just sort of snowballed from there. And I spent so I spent 16 years. It was 15 of those years I was eating out probably about 8 or 9 times a week and writing reviews about restaurants. And my figure has never been the same, but my my life is ultimately a lot better. So yes, I just love everything about restaurants and hospitality and the people in this business. So after 16 years at Square Meal, I started feeling a little bit like, well, I had become known around the sort of restaurant PR crowd as the person who would always send a thank you note with a few suggestions of how restaurants might be able to improve. So it got to that sort of stage where I could walk into a restaurant and feel like these guys are not going to be here in 6 months. And that to me was really sad, because I know how much heart and sweat and tears goes into a restaurant opening. So people were saying, you can charge for this stuff. And Anna, who was my deputy editor and ended up being a co-founder at Two Forks, we were talking about, actually, maybe we can sell this stuff. Maybe we can work with restaurants and help them instead of just reviewing them. So when Two Forks originally launched, we were sort of a mystery dining company. We had this product we called the Restaurant MOT, which we went in and we reviewed the entire customer experience, from the online presence before you went through to the exterior of the restaurant, how that looked, the sort of curb appeal with the outside menu, the full dining experience, the follow-up, or usually the lack of follow-up afterwards. And we put it all into this mega report with a traffic light system of, these are things you should be fixing right now, or these are things you could work on, and these are things that are just like, you know, optimal things that you could do later on. So we did that, and a lot of the stuff that we uncovered were problems with the website or the menu or the emails. And so our customers were the people saying, you guys are writers, you could sort this out for us, instead of just giving us a report of how to fix it. So then we were like, oh yeah. And it was in the process of Googling best web writing practices that I came across the concept of copywriting. So now I call myself a copywriter, but at that time I had no idea what that even was. And I joined this community on Facebook called the Copywriter Club, which just completely changed the direction both of the business and also of our lives, essentially, because we then discovered that we could sort of marry mine and Anna's journalism experience, her English degree, and my psychology, the psychology part of my degree, and actually properly study behavioral science, figure out what are the words that cause people to take certain actions. And it was just such a mind-blowing moment to realize that we can change how people behave. We can change what people order, how they interact with the brand, just by changing the words. And I just got completely hooked, and we kind of relaunched Two Forks as a copywriting business. And then over the last few years, we've gone into those 3 key areas: brand voice and messaging, customer journey optimization, and also menu optimization. Menus are so fascinating because there's so much you can do in terms of getting people to order in a certain way because you know they'll have a better experience, or buy a little bit more to get the spend per head up for restaurants. So yeah, that's how the long version of the story of how Two Forks came to be what it is now.
And I guess with the menu, sorry to go off on a little side note, but it's amazing what customers tell you about the way that they read menus as well, isn't it? Because I think operators are often like, oh, we yes, and we do that, and it just becomes a bit of a list sometimes. And when you talk to customers, that I don't read that at all, and yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Talking to customers is at the core of absolutely everything that we do. And it's so surprising how little time businesses in general spend speaking to their customers and finding out what really, really matters to them, because we can all communicate so much better if we focus on the things that customers tell us matter to them. And I'm guilty of it myself. You know, it's the sort of cobbler's children's shoes situation. You never really have time to do for your own business what you want others to do. So I've actually taught Glenda my tone of voice process, and she is in the process of developing the Two Forks voice, which is very exciting.
That's been fascinating, so fascinating, and just hearing you talk so passionately about stuff as well. It's so exciting to listen to. Can I go back to when you mentioned you and Anna kind of got together? How did that conversation go? Like how did that shift take place from you guys working at Square Meal together to then being like, actually, we're going to be business partners? Like, what was involved? How did it go?
It was kind of an it was both a long process and a very fast one towards the end. So we had desks next to each other. We worked together for years, and we knew that we were a great team, and our work, both of our individual work, is better when the other person is involved. So we knew if we ever left, we wanted to do something together. We both worked 4 days a week at Square Meal towards the end, so we had a day to play with, and so we used to get together. We spent a lot of money in restaurants. That was the investment in our business, was to go out for a nice lunch and have a good chat about what we're going to do. And we spent quite a few Fridays just dreaming and plotting and building this template for the restaurant MOT and the stuff that we wanted to do. But we never really did any business development. We just sort of thought, we'll get to it. We'll finish the project. This is what business coaches tell you not to do: finish the product first and then go out and find the customers. But we did it that way because we had the safety of employment on the side. But we had great times planning this for quite a long time. And then our very first client was the Great Northern Hotel, when that was taken over, when King's Cross was just being redeveloped. And our friend Anthony's dad was the GM of the hotel, and he wanted someone to consult on the food offering at the hotel. And it all happened super quickly. And he said to us, right, you're the perfect people to do this work for me, but I can only deal with limited companies, so you need to start a limited company. So we literally went online to companiesmadesimple.com, I think it was called, bought a limited company, registered, and off we went, just to service this one client. And in hindsight, we probably should have spent a little bit more time thinking about how do we structure this partnership, and, you know, is the limited company the right thing for us right now in our sort of self-employment journey? But it just felt so exciting to have a client before we'd even launched, so we just went for it. And the rest is history.
Amazing. And you hear that a lot, don't you, of people kind of doing it while they're still working, like they've kind of got a bit of backup, so they kind of stay with you and we have these little conversations in private to bring the idea to life a bit before they just go, no, I'm leaving, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's both. It can be both a safety blanket that becomes a little bit too comfortable, and it can also be liberating in the way that you can properly get yourself set up and you can have the time and the space to really think about how you want to do your business. But ultimately, it's not until you properly step out into the wild that you can really go for it. Because I probably stayed at Square Meal, so I went from 4 days a week to 3 days a week to 2 days a week to 1 day a week, and just sort of stepped down in hours. But it wasn't until I finally let go of the safety blanket that I could really focus on the business and properly make it, because I think you can get too comfortable and too reliant on just that sort of 1 day of full-time employment. So yeah, it was also a hard place to leave. It was a great place to work. I met some of my best friends in the world there, and it was the day when I finally left, I cried and I cried and I cried, and then afterwards it just said, okay, right, that chapter is closed, and now we are on to more exciting things and doing it for ourselves. So yeah, it was not the traditional way of doing it, and I probably, if I went back now, I would try and reduce the crossover period, but it got us going, and we didn't have to take any loans, so that's always a bonus when you start out.
Yeah, amazing. I feel like I did completely the opposite. I just left my job and then I had no job and I was working my notice and I was like, I should be really using this time to like research and do some stuff. And I didn't. And then in January, I was just kind of sat at my computer going, what do I do now? Which was a bit scary, but it did also give me a bit of a rocket to do something about it, motivated.
Yeah. And it pushes you, like you never would have put that shout out, like we wouldn't be working with each other if you hadn't had the sort of, right, I need to get business, I'm shouting out in this WhatsApp group, and and you got loads of business through that one post.
One WhatsApp group or one LinkedIn post, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. I love being freelance.
That's what happened to us as well. So in the early years of Two Forks, I can trace every single piece of business back to one Facebook post where I just put up, Anna and I have launched a business, send anyone our way who needs help with restaurant consultancy or mystery dining. And it all just came from there. And it's funny because I always assumed we have so many friends in restaurant PR, so many friends in the industry. Most of the leads came from friends who weren't even in the industry, but who we came more immediately to mind because when they talked to someone who needed something, they were like, oh, I have a friend who works in food and marketing, and like they only know vaguely what we do, but they just sort of assume that we're a fit for everything. So our best ambassadors have been sort of lawyers and accountants and the kind of people you never expected. So that's a great tip for someone who's just starting out. Talk about your new business with everybody, not just who you think is going to be your ideal customer. Talk to the people who just care about you as a person, because your network is so much bigger than you think.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna delve into the memory archive now, Annica. So do you have moments when you and Anna first started out at Two Forks where you were like, oh my God, I think we've made it here. Like this is it. We've hit the big time.
Well, we kind of thought that we made it with that first customer. But when I really felt like I made it was I had been working with this business coach who said, you should get your name out there, you should go to more events, and you should ask questions, and you should introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are. And so Anna and I both dared each other to sign up for the casual dining show. And we went to the various seminars, and we sort of were like, let's divide and conquer. So I would go to one seminar and she would go in the other lecture theatre. And in every single lecture, we would put our hand up, we would stand up, introduce ourselves and ask a question. And I went to watch Shamil from Dishoom give a talk, and it was sort of like the keynote of the day. And I was first to put my hand up. And when they came over with the mic, I stood up and I said, hi, I'm Annica from Two Forks. I've got a question for Shamil. And Shamil said, oh, hi, Annica. I think I follow you on Twitter. And I just thought, oh, wow, Dishoom, follow me on Twitter. And that felt like, right, okay, we've arrived. People know who we are.
Oh, nice. I was such a big fan of Dishoom. When you first told me that story, I was like, oh, it's amazing. Yeah, and what about the opposite then? Do you have any like not bad memories, but like things that maybe happened that now you feel like, oh, why did we do that? Or any kind of horror stories that you can remember throughout your time?
I think the first sort of big lesson was to stop thinking like a freelancer and start thinking like a business owner, and not to just sell your time to people. So because we came from journalism, where it's you essentially charge per word, like 50p per word for an article, or you might charge a day rate if you're an editor, which we both were towards the end. We kind of based our whole pricing on journalism prices, not realizing that copywriting and mystery dining are both more valuable than what journalism pricing is. And also we filled our calendar with client work. So we would try to book completely Monday to Friday, 9 till 6, full on client work. And nobody had ever told us that we needed time to do some marketing for ourselves or bookkeeping and all that kind of stuff. So we'd been freelancing as journalists because we were working 4 days at Square Meal. We were writing for Time Out and Evening Standard and other publications. So we thought, oh, we've run freelance businesses before, this is easy. But actually we were heading for burnout quite quickly after the first sort of year, when we realized that you had to do all of that other admin stuff at the weekend if you sold all your time. So I credit a lot of what we do now to the business coach that I had, or she's a copywriting coach called Joanna Weed. She's based in Canada. I did this program called the 10x Freelancer. Everyone on the American side of the Atlantic like to talk about 10x everything, but she really did 10x our business, because she taught us how to properly charge for what you're worth, A, by considering the value that your product brings to your customers, and B, properly working out how much time you need to work on your business so that your sort of hourly rate that you have in mind covers the sort of admin side as well. So at the moment, I only really work full on client work 2 days a week, and the other days are sort of business development, meetings and invoicing and all of that other stuff. So those 2 full days of writing have to pay for all of the rest of it. And so that was a really useful lesson that we learned early on. And if I hadn't come across that woman, Joanna, I think we would have probably still been charging journalist prices. And that there are so many of our peers who left journalism at the same sort of time and rebranded as copywriters, who are still charging the same day rate that we were back then. And so I'm very grateful for that sort of introduction to a new way of thinking.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an easy trap to fall into, though. It happened to me only because I was so paranoid that I had to make the same amount of money that I was making when I was employed, and that I had a salary that I didn't need to really think about. That I was just like, no, every day that I have available, I'm going to book out every single day. Like, I can do invoicing in the night, it won't take very long. And even though Natalie, who's the guest next week, the accountant, warned me, she's like, so you're going to work 4 days out of the 4 days you've got? I was like, yeah. She was like, okay, well, when are you going to do all of your like admin and your own marketing and this and that? And I was like, oh, well, I'll just do it in the evenings or on the weekends. And she was like, oh, you might find that you might want to take a day. And I do now, I have a day, but I still don't feel like it's enough. So it's interesting that you say, yeah, 2 days are your chargeable days. And yeah, interesting. Cool. So talk to us a bit more about the brand voice and brand messaging. Why should we care about it? Why is it important?
So I think that what you say and how you sound when you say it as a brand has a really strong impact on how customers feel when they interact with your brand. I think if we were all in a room together where we could sort of write down on a piece of paper, like, what's our favorite brand? If we had a long list of everybody in the room's favorite brands, I bet you they're brands who have really invested in their brand voice and their story and their messaging, because the human brain is sort of neurologically programmed to be a sort of story addict. And, you know, that's how back in caveman times, people found out where the hunting spots were and where the food, like it's a survival instinct that's built into us as humans. So we like the form of storytelling for finding information. So having messages and developing stories that you can tell is really, really important. And also the voice and the way that you sound when you tell those stories is basically how people feel like they're one of your tribe, or like they're connecting with you. We like the people that we know. And if a voice sounds like a friend of yours, or, you know, someone that you would hang out with, you'll want to spend more time with that brand or that business. So that's essentially the theory, is that we want to make customers feel like they're part of the family, so to speak, or like a group of friends. And by developing a brand voice that hits those sort of messages that we know are important to customers, and we're saying them in a way that sounds like one of them, we can get closer to them, because the heart is closer to the wallet than the brain. And if we feel a connection, we're much more likely to want to spend our money with that brand. So yeah, that's the theory.
Amazing. How do you get to that point? What's your process for unraveling all of that and understanding it when you work with a brand?
So we like to involve customers from the very start of the journey. I think a lot of brand work tends to be quite introspective. So, you know, you'll go around to your brand agency and you'll sit around on beanbags and you'll talk about how you want to be seen and how you want to be perceived. But if you really want to make that connection with your customer, the most important thing is to figure out, how do we want our customers to feel when they interact with us? What's really important to them, and how can we come across as someone that can deliver those things that they want, but also who can make them feel the feelings that they want. So usually it's quite rare for us that people come to us and say, can you help develop our brand voice from scratch? Usually an established restaurant brand will have spent some money in the past on brand work, and usually they've come out of it with a logo that they really like and colorways that they really like. They might have brand values that really represent them as a business and what they believe in. And then there's usually somewhere in the brand guidelines, one slide on tone of voice that says, we sound like this, this, and this. And then they go out to copywriters, or they give it to their marketing teams, and the writers are sitting there going, but what does it mean? How do we write with this? So usually what we have to do is we have to take the sort of brand values and what they really stand for as a brand, and look at, okay, so given that this is what we believe, what is it that we want our customers to feel when they, so you're basically taking every value and translating it into a feeling. And so that's a session that we do with the sort of leadership team to sort of talk about the feelings and the outcomes for the customer. And then we do a big piece of customer research, where first we send out a survey where we get to that sort of quantitative data. We want to hear from as many people as possible, where we want to understand how they speak about our brand, why they come to us, what they like about us, what they don't like about us, just to have lots and lots of detail. And then we do interviews as well to find out a little bit deeper about how people talk about the brand. But what we really want to get to is those motivations and objections. So what do our customers really, really care about? And what do they not like? You know, what do they not like from our competition, perhaps? Or is there anything that annoys them about what we do? Is there something we can improve? But by finding those things that really, really matter to people, and then looking at how they talk about those, we can start building the voice. So we build the messaging, which is the stories that we tell, the things that we communicate about. They're all based on motivations and sometimes also tackling objections. And then the voice, how we sound when we talk about that, we take those outcomes and the feelings that we want people to feel, and then we take the translation of how does the customer talk about those feelings, and we craft those into sort of voice pillars. So for example, if we want people to feel like, if we want people to feel like reassured, I'm with a safe pair of hands, like Annica knows what she's talking about. She's going to sort out our business. So if I start focusing on, right, my customers need to feel reassured that that I'm capable of developing a voice for them that works. How do they need to feel? I might think about, okay, I need to sound like an expert. I need to sound intelligent. I need to sound informed. I need to sound like someone who's done this before, like I have experience. So then you build your sort of pillars around that. And it's all really about nailing what are the sort of 5 key things that customers really care about, and how are we going to talk about those in a language that both reflects the way that they speak and also reflects what we believe in as a company and how we want them to feel.
Amazing. I was just completely drawn in by all of that. I just find it so interesting. I was trying to think of some examples where we've done some interviews together for clients recently, and some of the stuff they tell you just you wouldn't think of, because you have an opinion as a marketer and like, I bet they'll say this and I bet they'll say that. and they don't, they go completely off in this other direction, and it just always amazes me that you're like, why didn't I think of that? And unless you
Yeah.
talk, you just can't, you can't make those assumptions, can you? You have to get out there and listen to them, I guess.
Yeah, and I think even though the sort of purpose of the surveys and the interviews is to nail the voice and the messaging, you always end up with so much bonus material. You'll get ideas for new services and products you might offer. You'll get feedback on the way that you run your business. You'll get feedback on your teams. Actually, we could use the example of my own business. So Glenda's been doing interviews with my customers, and I was already pretty sure what I wanted my voice to sound like. I spend a lot of time with my customers. I know how they speak. So it was more about getting it down on paper, but it was so worth doing, because in these interviews, people are coming up with all sorts of things that they never would have told me face to face. I think, for example, that they all seem to hate the name Two Forks and they don't understand what it's all about. It's funny because we picked the name because we're like, we're two greedy eaters. We're so greedy. We have two forks, and we just thought it was funny. And then we had this sort of whole persona of like, we have an automated client management system called Dubsado, and we have all of our automated messages are sent from the fork bot. And we thought people thought that was all a bit funny, and it turns out they don't at all. So Glenda put down on my bonus slide, change the name of the business ? And I was like, oh no, it's been 12 years. I don't have the energy to rebrand.
It's like 3 people said it, and I was like, I don't want to tell Annica that she needs to change the name.
And then also, like, really useful information. Apparently, Will from Hawksmoor thought that we were too cheap and should charge more for our brand voice and messaging development. So that's great feedback. So we'll start putting our prices up imminently.
Okay, and so what would be, if you were just talking to a business candidly, what would be your best pieces of advice when if they really want to nail their tone of voice? Like, what are the top 3 things that you'd be like, these are the things you need to think about before you do anything or write anything?
Well, the number one thing is talk to your customers. You simply cannot develop a voice that connects with current or prospective customers if you don't talk to them. So if you don't understand what motivates them, what objections they might have, and how they talk about those, it's absolutely impossible for a voice to make a connection if you don't do any of that. So that's the number one thing. And then focus on those. What's that?
Sorry, that would apply to freelancers too, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a business. I think it's still important to understand who your customers are as a freelancer, what motivates them to want to hire a freelancer and that kind of thing.
It's important for anyone who wants to sell anything to anybody else. You need to understand who that anybody else is, what makes them tick, why should they come to you, and how can you win them over? That's essentially it. It's very rare these days that anyone has a brand new business that doesn't exist. So you're not selling the commodity itself. You know, there's hundreds and thousands of marketing consultants. You're one in a million. You're selling yourself and why you're different. You're selling the relationship and what they can expect in terms of their relationship with you, and are they going to have fun, or you know, what are they actually looking for? Are they looking for razor sharp efficiency and someone who sort of plows through works and bothers them as little as possible, or do they want that sort of cuddly, come round for cups of tea and let's hang out together? You know, if you don't know the basics about your customer, even as a freelancer, you're not going to be the memorable one. And so the third one, the third piece of advice would be, try to identify the sort of spots within your customer journey where you can surprise and delight and just be memorable. So try to get people to remember your service compared to other people's services. So that goes for freelancers. You know, there's probably, even in a small town, there's 100 different accountants you could go for. There's 100 marketing specialists. You have a big choice of website developers, photographers, whoever's watching. There will be lots more people that offer a similar service to yours. So you need to find out how can you surprise and delight and make people remember you, so that next time they need a service, they'll pick up the phone and call you without researching all the others first.
Amazing, great advice. And if you could give someone who wanted to start their own business or take the step from employment into self-employment, what are your 3 pieces of advice for that?
Well, the first one will be surround yourself with people who can share the journey with you and tell you what to do. As I said, I would still be charging freelance journalism prices if I hadn't met this woman, Joanna from Canada. And I think we all have examples. Anyone that I know who's a business owner has benefited hugely by surrounding themselves with a network of other business owners. So you don't have to, even if you don't have budget to join any kind of coaching program, which I think can be hugely beneficial, but it's not something that everyone can afford at the start of the journey. At least go and find your small business networks locally or online. Find the kind of people, who do your line of business. So joining the Copywriter Club for me was huge. I got to meet so many different copywriters from all over the world and learning about the processes and the pricing and all of that stuff that other people did. It gave me confidence to raise my own rates and do that side of things, but also get yourself into rooms with people who run businesses of all other types. So it's great to have a lawyer friend or an accountant friend or someone who's in the kind of business that your customers are in, so that you can get insights from them on what people are thinking. So yeah, the network is the #1 thing. Just get out there and hang out and ask the questions. You don't have to suffer through anything alone. There is someone else who has done what you're struggling with, and it's so much easier if we just share with each other. #2, which we've touched on already, is talk to everyone about what you do. So if you go to a dinner party at your aunt's house, tell everyone what you're doing. It's those random connections and the people that you're least expecting to send you the leads. They're the ones who are going to feed your inbox with interesting opportunities. And also the third one would perhaps be, don't be afraid to pivot, the famous COVID word. When we launched Two Forks, we were a mystery dining business. We put all of that time and effort into the restaurant MOT, but actually what we found after a while was the people who really needed us weren't necessarily the great restaurants. So we ended up having a lot of quite bad meals and we really weren't enjoying ourselves. So even though you put loads of time and effort into building a particular type of business and there's leads coming in and people are happy to pay what you're charging them, if you're not enjoying it, try something different. And so what we've done over the years is slowly pivot. We started out being, even when we changed to copywriting, we said, we can do any kind of writing for any kind of business. And the more we've narrowed it down to, we really, really love to work with people in hospitality. They're just the best people. So although we work with food and drink brands as well, we tend to only work with food and drink brands who supply to the hospitality sector because they're kind of our people. They all love the same things that we do. So like we've done a lot of work with Bella Sue, who's one of the biggest ingredient providers to the hospitality industry. We've also worked with some hospitality tech companies like Airship and Toggle, but whenever we work with businesses that aren't hospitality businesses themselves, they're people who feed into that wider industry because we just know that we love them. So the more we've honed in on that one group of people that we know we really enjoy spending time with, we've been able to listen to them, find out what they need, and sort of start dropping the services that perhaps, you don't have to do everything under the sun. So we've stopped writing blog posts and we've stopped writing newsletters for people. We focus in on the sort of email automations, the menus, the brand voice, the stuff that's really going to help people make a difference. And that's been a big step. Have I done 3?
I lost count as well, but it's all good stuff. I think something, this is probably number 4, but something that you told me was that, isn't the whole point that you're doing this so you get to like live the life that you want? And that's always stuck with me. Like every day that I sit down at the computer, maybe I'm doing something that I don't enjoy for another client, and not you ever, obviously. I kind of go, and is this what I want to be doing with my day? Like there has to be like a benefit of making that switch. You know, you don't have paid holidays anymore. You don't have maybe, I don't know, a free gym membership, but it does mean that you have that total right and flexibility over your own time, that you can just say no to things, and yeah, take the days off that you want to take off.
Absolutely. And life's too short to spend time with people that you don't like. And that's where that New Year's resolution came from for us. We had one, I'm not going to say who it was, we had one nightmare client that nearly broke us. And we sat down after that and thought, we didn't leave employment to go and work with someone who treats us like that. We need to stop this. So that's when we made the big announcement. We're only going to work with businesses that we love on projects that we really love. And it was amazing because we went out, we used it as a marketing thing. We sent an email around saying, this is what we're doing. And loads and loads of business came in. And then we kind of got a little bit caught up in that and forgot that August is usually really quiet, and we hadn't done any marketing, and we'd never done any marketing really. And so we sat there and we thought, oh, August is always quiet, that's fine. And then September came around and there was no leads coming in, and we're like, oh, we might not be able to pay ourselves this month. What's going to happen? And then we sort of figured out that we actually do need to do a bit of marketing and actively go out and get business. But even in those hard months when we didn't have any business, we did turn some projects away because they weren't right, because we didn't click with the people or we didn't believe in the product. And it's been game changing to spend every single day surrounded by people that we genuinely want to hang out with, working on brands that we love, on food that we really enjoy eating, and drinks that we love drinking. And that's been such a game changer that I would recommend that everyone just learn to say no. If you get that sort of weird feeling in your stomach that this doesn't quite feel right, it's probably not right. And we kind of we do these, my clients, actually, I'm going to visit one of my clients tonight. We've become such good friends that we go and stay at each other's houses. But I'm going to see this lady, Sophie, who I've been working with for about 5 years. She told me when we had our first sort of coffee on Zoom, I always do a 15-minute coffee before we even discuss a project. We just meet online and we chat. And once we started working together, she said, oh, I felt like I was being auditioned on that Zoom catch up. And I was like, Sophie, I think you're right. I think that's what we do. We actually do audition people. Like, is this someone that I would actually want to go and have a coffee with, and someone that I can picture myself hanging out with? So I guess it's a bit like speed dating. We do ask a lot of personal questions and like how they work and what they like to do and all of that kind of stuff. But it's been completely foolproof because there's only been a couple of times when someone hasn't really felt right in that first Zoom call. And a really big warning bell is when people don't show up to those calls. If they don't have enough respect for your time to show up for the first Zoom, it's likely that they're probably also going to miss future calls, and they're going to be hard to get hold of. And those kind of warning bells you want to listen out for, because they'll only bring you hassle for the rest of your relationship. So yeah, if you can afford to, and even if you can't afford to, we couldn't afford to for a couple of months, but we stuck with it and we were really strict about who we worked with. Eventually that pays off, because once you then, I don't really like the bragging side of it, but like, it's great to have a slide with all the amazing brands and logos that you work with. And when I show in the first sort of proper client meeting, once they've passed the coffee test, I get to the slide that has all those lovely restaurant logos and food brand logos. People do look at that and go, I want to be one of those brands. And I think it's only by focusing on those businesses that you really want to work with that you will get. And in the beginning, the slide had 3 brands on it, and then it had 5, and now it's got 25. And I think that's a really strong selling tool, is other great brands, because if they make you feel good, chances are they make other people feel good, and other brands want to picture themselves in the same sort of collection as those others.
It's amazing, such great advice. Okay, I'm going to check the Q&A box, which is the only box you can type in. Apologies. See if there's anything in here. So if you have a question, just pop it in there for me. Oh, that's nice. From Jenna, no question, just wanted to say thank you to Glenda for organising and Annica for such amazing advice. Many notes and feel inspired. That's nice.
Oh, that's lovely. Thanks, Jenna. I've only just seen the cat is in her sun lounger as well. That sounds lovely.
Yeah, very glamorous for a Friday afternoon. She's definitely living the life that she wants. Okay, Annica, I have one final question from me. As someone, you say that things that we've had conversations where you've said that you never stop learning, you love learning, you love reading and listening to loads of stuff, kind of staying on top of what's happening out there. What are your top recommendations for like best podcasts, books, I don't know, anything, videos? What are you into? Where do you get your inspiration?
Podcasts and audiobooks are my main thing. I go for a walk every morning before I do anything else, and that's when I like to do most of my learning. So I'm absolutely addicted. I subscribe to way too many podcasts, but the ones I always listen to is the Copywriter Club podcast. If anyone else is interested in copywriting, that there's hundreds and hundreds of episodes. They've been going ever since I came across them back in 10 years ago, I think. So there's loads to listen to there. There's another American podcast called the Marketing Book Podcast. It's this guy, Douglas, who is the most well-researched podcast host I've ever come across. He puts so much into his episodes. And he basically every single week interviews a new author of a marketing or sales book. And so the content is always amazing because these guys are good enough to get published. And then Douglas reads all of the books and asks really intelligent questions. And you can kind of always get a feel for, you get most of the learnings from the book in 1 hour long episode. And then from there, the interviews that have been really amazing, I've then gone to Audible and downloaded the full audiobook and then sort of delved deeper into that. So that's probably my number one recommendation. I think it's really useful for anyone, even if you're not a marketer yourself, just listening to really intelligent people talk about marketing. They have such great ideas for just how to sell yourself and how to present yourself as a small business. So that one's really good. And then I also love How I Built This, which is an NPR podcast, another American one. This guy, Guy Raz, who's a really good interviewer. He interviews people behind big brands, and he has British people on it as well. I remember Joe Malone was on there, and the people who founded Five Guys have been on there. He talks to really like founders of really big businesses. Whole Foods was on there, and you get that story of the early days of the business and what it took to build it. And it's really useful to remind yourself that even those huge, big budget brands that everyone knows around the world started from nothing and a whole lot of hard graft and a good idea and a good network a lot of the time. It's really interesting to hear those stories, I think.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing those. I hadn't heard of any of those. We do have a question. Have either of you found any networks or groups of freelancers or founders that you found it useful to talk things through? I'm new to and have some fantastic marketing and hospitality networks, but would love to network with other people going through the self-employed journey. I'm in Bristol, Fiona, so I'm not sure where you are, but there's a local networking group here called Rules of Engagement. It was just set up by, I think, another marketing freelancer, and she has guest speakers, and most people are self-employed or they're from small businesses within the city, and it's just, there's like free pizza, which is one of the main reasons I go. And it's just lots of like-minded people in the same room who like want to learn and want to get better, but also don't know absolutely everything. And it's a really safe space to kind of sit and say, oh, what are you doing with Google Analytics now? It's GA4 and it's no one judges you for not knowing everything and not knowing how to use threads and, you know, all of this stuff that just keeps getting thrown at you as a marketer. So I'm really sorry if you're not Bristol based. But I'm sure if you did a search, Facebook is a really good place to search. I know no one, well, I'm not really on Facebook anymore, but it's a good place to search for networking events like that.
I think it's really good advice, Glenda, to go local, and Facebook groups is a great place to find them. Even if you're I know a lot of people have left Facebook, but you can set yourself up a new profile that's just for you as a business owner, and find those local groups. Like in Whitstable, we have a similar one. It's called Seaside Sisters, and it's just creative women working in all sorts of different sort of walks of life. We engage with each other in the Facebook group, and we do coffee mornings and walks and that kind of stuff to just get together. So finding the local people, it's easier because you have something in common already, and then you can find out what other networks they're part of and build from there.
Yeah, there's another one called, there's like a mums networking one which didn't end up being quite right for me, but I think it's important to say as well, like just go to a few different random ones. Like I did in the beginning, I had too much time on my hands because I just left my job, and I just started going to loads just to see what they were like. And they're not all right. I think you end up finding the right ones with the right people that feels right for you and fits in with who you are. So
and also, if you can't find the right one, don't be afraid to start one. So for years I was looking, because I was so into this copywriter club on Facebook groups. I loved it. I loved everything about it, all the connections I made in there. And I was like, there must be one for food marketers. And I was searching and trying to look. And then eventually I thought, why don't I start one? And that's where I started my Facebook community, the Food Marketing Club. And we've got about 1,800 members in there now, I think. And out of that, we've set up separate little, like we have a WhatsApp community where we do LinkedIn accountability together. Sean's one of those. Hey, Sean. And we, it's super easy to set up your own thing, invite some people and get those people to tell other people. And it doesn't matter if it grows really slowly. The slower and more organically it grows, the closer the community becomes. And even that the WhatsApp group that came out of the Food Marketing Club that Sean and I are in, I think there's about 15 of us in there. And it's a real sort of, you feel like you're with your friends. Everyone can just say, oh, I'm really struggling with this sort of VAT return or whatever, like a really very specific issue. And then loads of people will pile in. Or if someone's worried about, oh, is this client right for me? Should I take this opportunity? Everyone is very generous with offering their advice and sort of just sense checking and like telling people, no, you're worth more than that. Go for something different.
Yeah, definitely. It says she's in Manchester, so if there's anyone else in the group that's in Manchester and has some networking group advice, let Fiona know. We just have one last question. We might be able to squeeze it in the last minute. Kathleen asks, what kind of questions should we be asking our customers when developing the tone of voice?
Okay, well, I have what I call my magic 3-question survey, and I think it's a survey that people should send out to their customers at least once a year, every year. And there's only 3 questions. The first question is, what do you like most about X brand? Is there anything you would change about us if you could? And the third question is, how would you describe working with or interacting with this brand if you were explaining it to a friend who didn't know about us? And those 3 questions will give you so much insight to A, what people love about you, B, things that you can improve, and C, that last question where they're describing the experience. That is your voice of customer data that's really going to fuel into the voice and help you talk about things that really matter to people.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to everyone for coming. It means a lot to see some little attendee numbers in the top right corner. And thanks so much, Annica, for your time. I know you've given it freely today. But it was great to chat with you, and hopefully there are some people on the webinar who've got some value out of today. If anyone would like to follow up with Annika or I, if you've got any questions or something that we maybe didn't have time to get to today, I think the chat works. Me and Annika. I'm just popping in our email addresses and links to our LinkedIn if you'd like to connect, but no pressure. Thank you all so much, and hopefully you can join us. There are 5 more of these with 5 other amazing women. Next Friday is Natalie Binstead-Way, who is an accountant. And if you have any finance questions for setting up on your own, she is quite literally the queen. So hopefully she can answer some of your questions then. But yes, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Amazing. Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.